All right, LassoCast fans, we are here once again. We are strangely wearing the same clothes as our Bill and Ted episode. But yeah, I'm here. I'm Anchor Pete. I got Danny right over here, also known as DrZaiusGoD on Twitter. And down there is Chris, also known as Future Boy Chris. So the reason why we are here today is because we are going to talk about the trailer that just dropped for The Haunting of Bly Manor. All right, guys. So what do you guys know about The Haunting of Bly Manor at this point?
I know that it is Mike Flanagan returning to Netflix with another haunting series. This one, I believe, is based on the Henry James book, Turning of the Screw, or the Turn of the Screw.
I think it's just The Turn of the Screw, yeah.
Turn of the Screw. Yeah, The Turning was the terrible movie that came out earlier this year, which was also it's got, you know, all the Flanagan cast are back. I don't know a lot about it, and I'm glad, because I'm just so excited for it, and I want to go into it knowing as little as possible. So just knowing that it's Flanagan taking, like, you know, obviously Haunting of Hill House was the Shirley Jackson story. Now he's taking another famous horror story, and he's doing the same type of series with it. I don't have enough time to express how much I loved Hill House. I think we all agree with that. So I think we're all just looking forward to, you know, what he's going to do to, you know, kind of up the ante with Bly Manor.
Yeah, have you guys read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson?
I've never read it.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of Shirley Jackson's short stories. I was big into horror short stories when I was younger. I guess I didn't have the attention span for longer novels. Stephen King's like Graveyard Night Shift and Skeleton Crew kind of got me into short stories a lot. So whenever I would pick up, I have the Dark Descent is somewhere over here. There it is. It's like a compendium of short stories. I had to read that in college, and there was at least 3 or 4 Shirley Jackson stories in there that I read.
Fun little fact, by the way, speaking of short stories, I discovered recently on YouTube that you can actually find a lot of audiobooks for collections of short stories on YouTube. And from the King cast, and Danny might have heard it at this point, by this point also, there's a Stephen King short story called Crouch End. And Tim Curry does the audiobook for it. Does the audio story. And it's on YouTube. I shit you not, I've probably listened to it 4 times.
Wow.
Because aside from Revival, it's really one of King's only, like, cosmic, it's got a Lovecraft vibe to it. And Tim Curry doing the hair is standing up on my leg right now thinking about it. So Tim Curry, Crouch and a Stephen King short story. It's terrific. You find it on YouTube.
It's funny because, like, the faces that you guys made, you kind of looked like Chris did when he was imitating that guy in the theater watching Halloween 2. Remember with the last episode, you're like, yeah, stab her. Like, you guys got like aroused talking about Tim Curry, reading the book. I was like, that's how you know you're freaking horror fans. You know, you guys are talking about short stories, and we were talking about Shirley Jackson. I'm sure the one that you guys all know is The Lottery, right?
Yes.
Like, to me, that story just freaked the hell out of me, and it only makes me think of how scary the Hill House book actually is. And my wife has read the Hill House book, but a long time ago, and she said that the Hill House show is not super faithful to the book. She said that the characters, there's a lot of characters with similar names, but the story is unique to itself.
I say no, by the way, like I know, but meanwhile, my only reference is, because I've seen it 24 times, one of my favorite horror films, is Robert Wise's The Haunting from 1963, which is an adaptation of Haunting of Hill House. And if you've never seen it, it is fantastic. Oddly enough, the Haunted Mansion in all the Disney parks has a lot of stuff in it based off of that film and from The Haunting of Hill House. The swelling, almost breathing of doors in the house, that's in the Haunted Mansion ride.
Oh,
and
okay.
it's incredible what the cast and what Robert Wise does in 1963 in black and white with no visuals. It's all just the sense of dread and sound effects. Fantastic film.
I remember when I was making it very clear to my parents that I was a horror movie fan, my mother would continually just like yell at me, you think this is good? You should watch The Haunting. And she would just yell. And like my mother doesn't like horror movies at all because of The Haunting from 1963.
Yeah.
And because it terrified her so much that she was like, why would I ever want to watch horror movies? And I'm like, oh, I guess I have to watch The Haunting. I mean, it's not as good as the Liam Neeson movie. I'm kidding.
I was going to say, come on now.
No.
Jesus. Yeah.
No.
Oh,
I was
wow. Is that a fireplace? Wow.
I was working in the movie theater when that movie came out. When actually that movie and The Haunting of the House on Haunted Hill remake came out almost at the same time.
Yep.
And I remember I would time my break just so that I can go into the back of The Haunting to watch Owen Wilson's head get knocked off with this like swinging pendulum thing.
We're going off on a lot of tangents here, and I think it's because there's not a lot to work with in the trailer itself, right? Because you don't see that much in it. But I think it's very important to talk about the source material for both of these shows because, to me, it's a great example of how Flanagan can add his own touch to something and make something much better or make something much more interesting. I don't think that Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House story probably needs to be improved upon, but the family aspect that he added to it, that's what that whole show is about. And that's what makes that show so excellent. And I guess my question to you is, do you think that he's going to do the same thing with the turn of the screw? And my follow-up question is, do you guys know the story of the turn of the screw?
This is what I know so far. We've said before there isn't a lot of information out, and if there is, we haven't really dived too deep into it. But I heard that this is somewhat an adaptation of Turn of the Screw. I also heard that it's pulling from a lot of Henry James stories.
Oh, okay.
So I think this is really, I think in a way, and this may be a bold statement, Flanagan may be making sort of his own Castle Rock with Henry James.
Oh,
interesting. And that he's pulling from Henry James stories.
Yeah.
And another thing that's a big difference between this and Hill House is that Flanagan is not directing every episode.
Oh, okay.
He's directing a couple episodes, and he's pulled directors from some other Netflix horror films. I don't know any of the names. He's pulled directors from other Netflix horror films. He's pulled directors from horror shorts that he's seen either online or at festivals, and that's rounding out all of these episodes. With him godfathering it, I would imagine. But of course, we're all looking forward to the Flanagan episodes. But we also horror is a community that champions up and comers and we love what's this new thing? That's so new directors, new visionaries, new ways to tell stories. Like that's of course something to be excited about. And then just add Flanagan. And, from what we know, at least half of the Flanafamily is involved in this. There's a lot of reasons to be excited. And that's before we even see this first trailer.
In this 80, 90 seconds that we got, you see so many of the cast from Hill House. Like Victoria Pedretti, who played Nell, the Betnick lady. She is the lead in this. But you also see Oliver Jackson-Cohen. I forgot his character name. Oh, yeah, of course. Henry Thomas, Kate Siegel, of course. Alex Iso is in this also. And she played Wendy Torrance in Dr. Sleep.
Oh, that's great. I didn't know she was in this. I'm so happy to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also looked up, because we were talking about it on the Hush podcast, I looked up Midnight Mass, and she's in that too. So I guess she's a new member of the Flanafamily.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys saw, it was kind of a low-budget horror film a few years ago, Starry Eyes. She was one of the leads in that movie. And that's a pretty brutal watch. I think it's free on Prime. That's a pretty brutal little watch. But it's a good movie. And I think the directors from that movie, they just got
Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary. Yes, thank you. Shit.
Yeah, Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
It was a thing that happened. Pet Sematary.
From what I know of the turn of the screw, from like what my wife's told me, and maybe I'm even messing it up, but essentially it's about a woman who's watching after children. I don't know if she's the mother or she is like a person that's hired to watch the kids. Is it okay if this might be spoilers, is it okay?
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. But essentially what happens is she kind of loses.
You're not spoiling a very old book.
Okay. Right. Well, hopefully it won't spoil the show too much, but like she is watching after these kids and I think they're like evil and they're essentially making her lose her mind. And so she ends up murdering the children. And so I'm wondering if that might be the character that Victoria Pedretti is playing. I kind of saw glimpses of that potential story in this footage. I mean, obviously you had Victoria Pedretti who seemed like she was kind of losing her mind and she was like looking around, you know, super paranoid. And then at the very end of the trailer, you saw a little girl essentially like shush a ghost, right?
Ugh.
So that's like a complete 180 from Hill House where the children are very scared of the ghost. In this case, they are, aren't intimidated by them at all.
Yeah, no, that ghost clearly owes that girl money or is indebted to her in some way. A lot of that's false. That's false to do that.
There's something so genuinely creepy about little kids in horror. Like we can make a list of like, little kids in horror, but whenever a little kid, when that, like you hear the noise in this 80-second, 90-second preview, and it's like very, like just this terrifying, like ghost noise. And what's so much scarier than that ghost noise is the little girl turning, looking right at the screen and going, shh.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, fuck. Like, like a little kid telling a ghost to be quiet is scarier than a ghost scaring a little kid.
So what did we actually see in this that was noteworthy? Because, I mean, I know we saw the whole, like, a bunch of members of the cast, right? But, like, what imagery besides that girl shushing the ghost did we actually see in this trailer that stands out?
I love that. I love how warm it feels at times, which is so Flanagan. And I don't want, it's weird. I want to give him as much credit as he deserves, but I don't want to take any credit away from directing in this trailer that we may be seeing from some of these new filmmakers. But it's got, like, the coldness of it stands out, but it's got such a warmth to it at times. There's a scene where they're in a dining room and you could almost, sounds dramatic, I know, but you feel the heat from like they look like gas lamps. And just there's a lot of like, you can feel the sun, you can feel the warmth of the wood in the house. And man, when shit gets cold, it's ice cold. You feel it. And this is 1 minute and 20 seconds.
There's also the opening scene of this trailer where Victoria Pedretti opens up a door and is looking around in this dark room, and then you. Speaking of creepy children,
Hey,
there's the all-star of the channel right there.
There's the scene where she's in that room and there's all the toys, and it looks. I don't want to say an Annabelle doll, but there's like a doll that turns its head and looks at her as she.
Oh my God, it just turned my head.
Yeah, get out of here, creepy kid.
Yeah. Did she see the trailer too?
No, I don't think so. Not yet.
Yeah, because if she saw the trailer too, just have her review it with us. That'll make our views go way up. You know?
Yeah.
Show it to her right now, right before bed.
Come here. I got a ghost to show you.
Yeah, let's have a live trailer reaction.
Looks like your doll.
Again, you could do a laundry list of horror movies about toys and like Dolls by Stuart Gordon, and what was the Full Moon series, Demonic Toys.
Oh yeah.
It's of course Child's Play. I can't. Child's Play, I didn't think of right away, but all those movies. And so it's like you see a doll, you see toys, and then one of them turns its head to look at her as she leaves. It also, I think Flanagan did say that he's bringing back the hidden ghosts. So I know I was pausing the trailer and trying to look in like every corner of the screen. I couldn't anything in the trailer, but that was one of the great things about Hill House was we're so it's so hard today to like focus on something, especially on Netflix, where you have your kids and you have your pets and you have your phone and everything else. But Flanagan made Hill House in a way with those hidden ghosts where you literally had to look at every corner to corner of the screen, because it was almost like it was almost a game where you as the viewer are like, what am I looking for now? Is he trying to get me? Is there something coming out? What's that back there? And then I know that he's going to do that again in this series, and I can't wait for that aspect. Like, this is totally going to be put your phone down television.
With Hill House, I did watch it with my wife, and she utterly enjoyed it too. That was like probably our favorite show to watch together. That year. There's 2018 was when it came out, right? I will say though, with Hill House, we actually had some issues with the very last episode, and I'm hoping that with this new show, we might not run into a similar problem, because Hill House, the whole aspect of the family, that was the most enjoyable part, right? Because it's just like what we said in our previous reviews. You guys have said that like you could actually take the horror element out of the movie and it would still be a great drama, right? I feel like you could take the horror element out of Hill House and still be this great family drama. I just felt like the resolution of Hill House itself, it was like a little too positive.
It's interesting that you make both of those points, because number one, that's a very common complaint about Hill House. I would not pretend that idea is in the minority. It's not whatsoever. It's a very common complaint. Also, what we spoke about you remove the horror element, and that's why I think that last episode works so well for me. Again, I understand. I'm in the minority on that. Like, a lot of people were disappointed with that last episode because they felt there was a major tonal shift. And Flanagan said many times that nothing changed. This was the idea from the get-go. At the very last second, he thought about, putting the red room, the red door, the window from the red door room in the background of the final shot. But he's like, I just couldn't do it. He's like, these characters have been through enough. Mm. He's like, I could not. He's like, and I always felt like, you watch them go through this tremendous thing through decades of their life. He's like, I can't, basically, I can't do them dirty in the end. So right. Listen, that's one of those things where it's liking the last episode, I think I'm in the minority, but I 100% understand why people weren't completely on board with it. I get it. It is a major tonal shift.
I kind of agree with Chris. All I remember about watching Hill House was just bouts of screaming and crying. Like, and I remember the final episode ended and I was a mess. And but to me, that kind of went along with what the show was about, with this family. You know, so I can totally see why, like Chris said, it makes sense because, again, you think, okay, Netflix, this is going to be out there for the masses. You know, it's kind of like, you know, Chris made the point in our Hush podcast about how Hush worked better on Netflix because you could kind of see a theatrical audience not really getting this so much. With Hill House at that last episode, you could see where if you're investing so much time into a horror series on TV, you would want something more in line with, you know, horror and being scary at the end. Yeah. And it kind of felt like a come down. But again, I feel like we're jaded being as big of Flanagan fans as we are. Like we understand why he did that in that way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying again for you, you know, compared to you. I'm just saying in terms of like the three of us to the like, because like Chris said, it's not an unpopular opinion to say I don't love the last episode.
I actually did really like the last episode a lot too. To me, that shift was kind of abrupt. It did feel like kind of like, oh, the house is this evil entity, but then it's like, oh, all of a sudden it is also a place where people can be with their ghost relatives, right? Like you can be all together. I think what'll probably make this show different is the very nature of the house, right? If this is an anthology series that's, you know, named after the house that it takes place in, then obviously the house itself must have a personality, right? What do you think the personality of this house might be? Like, what do you think the thing might be in this house?
I think it's going to vary. I'm kind of really interested to see what, you know, these different directors can do with, like, taking over the same setting and the same characters, but then giving their own kind of, their own input and their own different styles. And this goes back to the Flanagan Kingcast episode where he does talk about Bly Manor, and he does, you know, Chris mentioned earlier about it, how it is Turn of the Screw, but it's also a bunch of other Henry James works. So, you know, it could vary. You know, we could see ghosts in one episode. We could see, you know, evil kids in one episode. We could see a combination of the two.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming it's all going to come together. If Flanagan has shown us something, it's that he certainly feels very comfortable in large, sprawling estates, from the Haunting of Hill House to the Overlook to Bly Manor. You know, big, sprawling, rich people estates. Those are good places for horror.
It's very interesting, Danny, that you say that. Like his early films, which we've gone through, and even Hush, it's a much smaller space, right? Yeah. So just as he's evolved as a filmmaker, it's almost like his setting has, like, you know, gotten much bigger too, right? Because you know, Absentia, it's just in the apartment pretty much, and then in Oculus, it's just that house.
Gerald's Game is just literally the one house for much of the movie too, aside from like, a couple flashback scenes.
So with this one, it you know, the houses are getting bigger now. The whole map.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris? What do you think we can expect from this show?
I mean, I can tell you what I'm hoping to expect. I'm hoping to expect, you know, just these great, like, ensemble, like, you know, like those great ensemble dialogue moments like Hill House had, and, you know, maybe some, you know, 11, 13 minute shots, you know, stuff like that. And really, I'm just looking, if there's anything to look forward to in a Flanagan film, it's obviously the scares, because, you know, it's never cheap from him. It's always subtle. It's always effective, but just terrific character moments. You know, you want those moments like, you know, Hill House where the rest is confetti, stuff like that, stuff that just, you know, just great characters, great actors, great dialogue. And the house has to have a personality. That's the thing about Hill House. That house had a personality. And that's one of the first things that jumped out at me about this house is that, like I said before, you feel the warmth, but man, you feel that cold too. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited for new ideas, a new story, but something in the same vein, you know, something familiar tonally, but also something new with some fresh blood in there.
So I think that Bly Manor comes out October 9th, right?
October 9th, Flanagan tweeted it today, so we have a date, mark it on a calendar, and then pump it into my veins.
There's not a lot of info, not all of the info for this is on IMDb. It's only got 3 episodes up. There's barely any info for that. It's only got one of the other directors listed, which is this guy, Ciaran Foy, who directed Sinister 2 and directed a film that I actually heard good things about that I had not seen on Netflix called Eli.
Oh, I heard stuff about that.
I heard about that, yeah. That's a great soundtrack too, yeah. I'm thinking Lastercast, like we watched like 3 episodes. I mean, you guys will probably watch the whole thing, you know, in 2 days, but like we watched 3 episodes.
I could, you know, it's like if it depends on what she wants to watch. Like I can. Well, no, this is a little different when it comes to Flanagan. You know, Denise was actually away on business when Hill House came out, and I sat in this office chair, not even on the couch. I sat in this office chair and binged Hill House until the sun came up.
Oh my god!
And then we watched it again when she got home. Yeah. And I was that obnoxious asshole who was like, "Oh, look behind the ladder, and oh, behind the door." She literally grabbed the remote and she's like, "Dude," and I'm like, "I'm sorry. Like I had to, you know." I'm like, "I won't say another word." You know? I was really obnoxious watching it again.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that we'll be obnoxious to our viewers, and we will watch 3 episodes in a block. And then review 3 episodes, and then just do that until the show's over, starting in October.
Sounds good. I can't wait.
I think that's good. We can just kind of wrap this one up. And next time we get together, which we're going to record this upcoming Tuesday, we're going to record our episode on 1BR. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon.